Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our daily briefing. I'm joined again by Darlene Compton, the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Justice and Public Safety, Tanya Mullally from EMO, and Kim Griffin from Maritime Electric. So thanks for all of you for being here. We're nearing the 72-hour mark since Fiona ripped through our province. Kim will have a more up-to-date information. I think her phone may even buzz as we're in the middle of this briefing. But our Maritime Electric crews are out working to restore power. We've had almost 6,000 customers back online since yesterday, and they're working day and night to restore as many customers as quickly as possible. We have over 100 military personnel on the ground working with our transportation and infrastructure crews in conjunction with Maritime Electric to make the recovery as efficient as possible in spite of all the difficulties that we all face. And as I say, Kim will have a more in-depth briefing on our electricity situation in a moment. In addition to the military personnel, we have lots of boots on the ground and lots of people and organizations offering and here to help. Team Rubicon, which is a group of retired military veterans, are on their way, are here to help with our recovery in any way that they can, and they'll work with our crews as well. Our provincial forestry crews have been part of that response from the very beginning as well, working with Maritime Electric and Transportation and Infrastructure to remove as much debris as possible along the way to make repairs more quickly addressed. We have the Salvation Army as well, and Samaritan's Purse are here as well. So, as I say, lots of assistance, and as well as many islanders helping each other, which has been great. Our transportation crews are out and cleaning up our roadways. As roads become open, again, a reminder to be cautious while you're out on the roads. With some power coming back online, as we've said for many days now, with some of the downlines, they could be live and very dangerous. And the last thing we want after being through what we've been through is even more disaster and catastrophe. So please be mindful, ever mindful and careful. With the rack, the tank farm coming online, our fuel tank farm coming online last night about 8 o'clock. Fuel has and it continues to be distributed across the province. The last update that I had at about 12:45 today is that there are more than 35 stations now with fuel. More and more are opening as the day progresses, and they will continue to come online. I will say to all islanders again, there is fuel. There's no shortage of it. We're working with our partners to get it distributed as quickly as possible, and that will happen all across PEI, and there are stations open in all counties now across Prince Edward Island, more and more coming online throughout the day. In addition to that, there are over 35 grocery stores across the province that are now open. We have been and we continue to work with our retail partners to get as many stores and pharmacies open and online in communities across PEI as soon as possible. With the bridge being open now for a couple of days, our supply lines have been operational. They're operating as needed. There is food. It's being distributed to stores as it always has, and as those stores open up, we expect to see a return to normal as soon as possible in those regards. An update on our cabinet committees that I talked about yesterday. We've been meeting throughout the last couple of days. We met again this morning. Today, the priorities that we have been working on and are addressing are as follows. We are in contact, have been in contact, and continue to be in contact with all of our home care clients across the province to check in, to make sure they're okay. We are engaging with transportation crews to make it a priority to clear those driveways of those home care clients as a priority first, if that is what's needed. These visits and these calls include those who may need oxygen or other critical needs and supplies, and we're working to address that as quickly as possible. And when needed, we will make it a priority to make sure those homes are accessible quickly. We're working with our reception centers across the province. There are over 40 of them. Those centers that have kitchen facilities within them, and many do. We're working with many partners to prepare, to see if we can prepare and meals and share them with as many islanders as we can, particularly those without power. So we're in the process of working with local suppliers, and as you would expect here in Prince Edward Island, the response initially has been overwhelming, and that doesn't surprise us here. And the plan is to work with as many as we can to provide as many meals as we can to those in need, and to do so in communities across Prince Edward Island, and that has been identified as a priority. There are currently 7 child care centers open in Prince Edward Island, with additional centers coming online tomorrow and in the days ahead. The Department of Education and Early Learning have been compiling information about essential daycares, child care centers, to ensure that those who have to go to work in the coming days as we make our way back have access to child care. And as of the time of this broadcast today, there are over 60 spaces available already for our essential healthcare workers and others. So that's the response from our early child care centers has been overwhelming. And as electricity is restored to those in our communities across PEI, it's amazing. We shouldn't be surprised. We've seen this so many times where our early childhood employees respond and are operational. So my gratitude to them for their hard work, and that will continue to be updated in the days ahead. Through the Department of Social Development and Housing, we are making today available as just a start $5 million fund for nonprofit and charity organizations who are working and able to help islanders who are in need. They will provide such thing as grocery cards, gas cards, or any other essential supplies that might be needed. Our department has been working with nonprofit organizations to help us assist the needs that are out there and to provide that financial assistance quickly and without any barriers. So the organizations will have that at their disposal, and we will work closely with them. As you know, as all islanders know, those are the people who are on the very front lines of Prince Edward Island, and they are the ones who can best help us understand the immediate needs of islanders and also get access to those individuals with funds as quickly as possible. In addition, our government will immediately enact the Provincial Disaster Financial Assistance Program in partnership with the federal government. This will provide emergency, non-payable financial assistance to island residents, municipalities, and small businesses, including aquaculture and agriculture businesses. This is to ensure that there are no gaps. Obviously, if you are impacted and you have insurance, that's the place to start. But for those losses that aren't insured, this program would be for you, and this program will be rolled out immediately. And we encourage you to reach out as quickly as possible to let us know what your needs are. Again, that's a quick synopsis of our priorities that we outlined today. There are many other issues that we're working on and to address that will be shared in the hours ahead and into tomorrow. I just want to say before I turn it over to the Deputy Premier, just again a huge thank you to so many islanders who are rallying together. We knew and we know that this would require all hands on deck to get us through this. It would require islanders working together and looking out for one another, and it really while it shouldn't surprise us because we've seen it so much and so often, it really is heartwarming to see so many islanders pulling for each other, cheering for each other, and helping each other. It's really been the magnitude that we've seen in the last couple of days might be the biggest and best that we've seen yet. So on behalf of me, on behalf of the government of PEI and all of our citizens, to you, thank you, and keep up the great work. We'll need your patience and understanding and togetherness in the days ahead. Minister?
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. It's hard to believe that it's only day 2 after Fiona, and I can say confidently that it definitely seems like much longer for most islanders. It's been long hours, and I want to thank everyone who is behind the scenes working hard on the ground, who have been working really around the clock. They're away from their families. They may not have been able to check in on loved ones yet, or even been home since the storm hit. So I empathize with them, and I appreciate everything that they are doing, and I know Islanders appreciate everything that they are doing. I know Islanders have been patient and understanding, and I want to thank you for that. And I know that over time it will get harder and harder to stay positive for ourselves, our loved ones, because the top priority right now is getting the lights back on. That's the backbone of when we can make significant progress in getting our province back on its feet. Maritime Electric advised this morning at 9:15 that they had got 4,000 households back online, and I'm sure Kim will give us an update on that. They confirmed that they are prioritizing critical infrastructure like hospitals, grocery stores, and gas stations. Once we get power back on, things will get a lot easier. I defer to Kim to speak to that a little bit later. There are lots of questions, and that's all very reasonable. You might be wondering about school this week, how to get more food, what to do about our trees on our property, and how do people get to work and childcare needs. Every day, EMO is assessing and adjusting the priorities of the day. The next 24 hours continue to be about clearing the roads so Maritime Electric can get power turned on, getting Maritime Electric resources they need to do their job. They need roads cleared. I submitted a request for assistance, and there are 120 military with boots on the ground to help transportation and work with Maritime Electric. They are on the ground in our province as I speak. We need more information on damage. I've asked for a helicopter to capture the provincial damage, and that's been approved. When it's safe for them to go up, we will have more damage information, and that will help us to keep our plans up to date. Whatever we need to get the critical infrastructure up and running, I'll ask for it. I want our residents to know that we hear you, and we're working to get those problems solved, step by step. We need to get our critical infrastructure up and going so that people can keep their households going. For people needing government services, the civil service is closed today and tomorrow. Health services are operating differently, so please check ahead and understand that they are sharing that information out to the best of their capabilities. We expect a decision on schools probably be tomorrow as they figure out when they can and cannot open and what they need to open, and if they can't open, what the plans are. I'm told that the infrastructure of our courts are doing okay, and they are making plans to see if they can hear matters later this week. What we know for certain is that tomorrow will be the same as today. Matters are adjourned. EMO are advised that there have been a number of gas stations and grocery stores open, as the Premier has mentioned. We are sharing this with local authorities, with media members, and through our channels. The updated lists are that we receive, as we receive them, will go to the public so that we can keep you as well informed as possible. Through the Department of Transportation, they are finalizing plans on debris and food disposal. We also have to be mindful that roads need to be cleared for power restoration, so it is a balance. Through my own department, the Insurance Bureau of Canada are reporting into EMO, and I'm told by staff that an additional 210 out-of-province adjusters are available to help local adjusters if needed. What Islanders should do for their insurance claims is to take pictures, videos, and document as much as possible. Review your policy and get in touch with your insurance company. Since launching the disaster reporting tool this weekend, there have been 624 reports come in. It comes as no surprise that the damage is from tip to tip and across all sectors. I know fridges are getting empty, and as the Premier mentioned, we are putting plans in place to support community organizations to help those who need extra help, and more details will come on this. If anyone needs supports, please call 211. For those who have additional needs, I know our partners, the Canadian Red Cross, are now accepting donations. If you're looking for ways to help out financially, this is a great option. And the federal government is also matching those amounts for every dollar you're donating. It will go that much further with our partners matching those amounts. We are also in discussions with Ground Search and Rescue to check in on our residents. I'll have more details to share as we finalize those plans. And now I'll pass it over to Tanya.
Excellent. Thank you, Minister, Premier. So I have a fairly brief update. Certainly, today's weather might have been a bit of a challenge for folks that may have some water issues. So hopefully tomorrow is a better day and get back out there and do some cleanup. So as already noted, assessments are still ongoing and will go into the days, and certainly we're prioritizing the needs of our critical infrastructure sites, such as hospitals, schools, grocery stores, gas stations, to make sure that they're powered up, and that's Maritime Electric is focusing on that piece of work, obviously, and then we're kind of on the back end of that trying to ensure that the other supports are there for those institutions and retail spaces that they can continue to provide services to Islanders. I think where our focus here always is at our Provincial Operations Center, and actually we post this in our Operations Center, our top priority is always life safety. So, if you're out on those roads, I cannot urge you enough, and I'm sure Maritime Electric would speak to it as well. People really need to be careful. I had to drive home last night, and I have to say it wasn't pleasant, and it was dark. And I think so if you're driving in the dark, it's even more reason to be super cautious, making sure you're safe and very aware. People are walking on the side of the road, and it's really hard to see. So, use all your caution that you can. As well, we're hearing through our fire marshal's office that we're experiencing a few more fires, certainly pointing to improper use of generators. Again, can't stress enough, make sure that they're well ventilated, not near any type of building or any type of thing that could burn. I don't know what the right word is, I apologize. So yeah, you're making sure that you do that. Fire marshal actually will be doing tips with local radio stations to provide some safe usage. And as well, don't leave candles unattended. Obviously, we appreciate that, you need to have the light on, but making sure that if you leave the room, that you make sure that you distinguish that candle. I think that's all I have to say. I'm going to hand it over to Kim for her update. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Premier King, Minister Compton, Tanya. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to provide an update from Maritime Electric this afternoon, and I have been checking my phone for updates, so I apologize, as I had mentioned to you prior to this. I'm trying to give everyone the latest update that I have. So we had a bit of weather today that slowed us down a little bit, but at the same time, we have mounted the largest restoration efforts ever in the history of our company, and double that of Dorian. We have 89 crews on the road this morning, and more coming. We had 4,500 customers restored this morning, and we're up to nearly 10,000 customers now that we've been able to restore. I do want people to know that we are working in pockets and communities across the island, but I wanted to share with you that we did the assessment with the helicopter from yesterday. No major issues compared to what we had in Dorian, so that's a check mark. That's a good sign. Secondly, as we go across the island from substation to substation, we're not seeing significant areas at those points as of yet. Where we're seeing the problems, which many of you know in your community, is that we have a number, thousands of trees down that have pulled down our power lines. So our number right now remains the same, about the 300 poles that we had. That was our estimate yesterday, and that stays true. So we're really trying to make sure that, and pleading with you actually, to help us keep the roads clear of traffic. And I'm sorry I have to ask that. I realize that people may need food and may need fuel, and of course if you need to do that. But if not, if you could please stay home. Our crews are pleading with you to help us so that we can improve our restoration efforts. And I don't say that lightly. If I didn't hear that directly from the field over and over and over again on every one of my operations calls, I wouldn't be asking you this. So I really need your help. The other thing I'm very concerned about, as I did mention yesterday as well, is that as we start to re-energize, you have to stay away from our power lines. Our crews are focusing in every community across the island. If you haven't seen them, you've probably seen our spotters or our contractors. So it is absolutely paramount that you stay away from our system, please. So that is the summary of my update. We have been making progress in key pockets across the island, and we feel better than we did yesterday. And having 10,000 customers restored at this point is better news. So that's an update from me, Premier.
It sure is, Kim. So thank you very much, and again, pass on our thanks and gratitude to the staff and the line crew. And everyone who's helping. With that, I know there are numbers of media or friends in the media. Maybe we can open up some questions and to some questions from our friends in the media.
Sunebi, The Guardian.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. First question for Kim Griffin.
Just wonder, so Nova Scotia Power is sort of reporting that 40% of their power has been restored in Cape Breton, 80% restored in Halifax. We see that Summerside's utility seems to have restored quite a large number of power. So I'm just wondering, I guess, why Maritime Electric Island, why it has been slower than, I guess, these other utilities.
Okay, fair assessment on your end. We actually are quite surprised by the progress that, just because if you've seen, and we're going to do a better job even showing some of the devastation from our crews, but some of these areas are really taking us an enormous amount of time either to get to or then once we get on site. So I can assure you that our crews are doing the best that they can to try and restore power as quickly as possible. I'd love to be able to say to you that we'd have them on faster, but the sheer devastation on Prince Edward Island, I'm not sure if others can match that. With all due respect, I think that the significant amount of damage that we've had across the province is the worst storm I've ever seen.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess, sorry, I guess this is just sort of a question for Minister Compton or Premier King. Looking back, I guess, to the response from Dorian, the assessment report by Callian kind of noted similar issues with mobility communications after the storm. There were a number of issues up to 72 hours after the storm. I guess, in your opinion, looking at both Dorian and today, have you seen an improvement in the telecom backup services for outages? And also, has the province invited Bell Alliant or Eastlink to be part of daily EMO briefings in the lead up and then the aftermath to Fiona?
Yeah, well, I'll let Tanya address all who are part of the EMO briefing, and that lineup is vast, as you can imagine. I know storm to storm, you take everything that you learn and try to put it into practical use as you prepare for a storm such as this. I think we all know that Dorian was a big blow. Fiona is Dorian on steroids, I think would be the best way to say it. In spite of all of that, we've held up reasonably well. There are challenges in many different areas, and I guess that's to be expected. Look, others can and will grade us on what kind of job we do, and look, we're just here trying to do the best job we can and get Islanders back online as quickly as possible, and that's what thousands of Islanders are doing here. But if you, Tanya, wanted to outline who we deal with on our EMO briefings.
Sure. So we have approximately 60 agencies actually that we deal with, and Bell Alliant is absolutely one of those, as well are all other telecommunication companies that provide service here in the province, and that has been certainly since and before Dorian. I think one of the improvements that we did was maybe formalizing some of those relationships, because some of them were a little bit not as formal, I guess I would say, but Bell Alliant has always been a strong presence in our Emergency Operations Center, so they participate daily in our emergency calls, providing updates to us. So yeah, absolutely that. The other improvement that we could say is we have sight on all the locations where their towers are, and then we've shared that with Maritime Electric. They are working directly with Maritime Electric to prioritize that restoration effort, and that's something that probably we weren't as strong out the gate on Dorian, but we certainly rectified that for this particular event. I can say personally that we've been working really closely with Maritime Electric on critical infrastructure. We've met many times over the winter to discuss that and determine what that prioritization listing looked like. So yeah, we certainly have made significant improvements.
Okay, I guess last thing, really just quickly, this is probably to Ms. Mullally. I wonder if you could provide a status update on the state of public and private long-term care homes, and are we aware whether all of these homes have access to a generator?
I would not have that at hand, but we can certainly get that. I do know that we have a health PEI representative in our operations center, and they're monitoring that. I think all provincially owned health PEI facilities have generators and are operating. I don't know about the private status, but as I understand that they're all operating, and as supports, or if supports are required, they're funneled into EMO and again prioritized as part of that critical infrastructure listing.
Thank you.
Lauren Rigaud, Radio Canada.
Good afternoon. I was wondering if you could provide some information to know where the military are. Are they at a specific place to help, or everywhere helping every cause?
Look, according to Minister Deagle, they're deployed across Prince Edward Island. As to their exact location, Laurent, I don't know that offhand. I know there's 110 plus support staff that are out there, and they're I mean, check across PEI, I suppose, but everywhere where there is damage somewhere that needs to be cleaned up. And as to the actual site of where they're at, I would need to go back to talk to Minister Deagle to find that out. They're stationed in the Summerside area, I know that, but where they've been deployed today, I don't know for sure.
And I had a question about childcare centers. You mentioned that 7 of them are open, and does it mean that even if some schools remain closed, some childcare centers will be able to open?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, our response, has been so large. But I know there are staff from education, from our early childhood sector, that have been in conversation with every operator if they can get a hold of them to find out what their status is. I think there are 7 open today. I think there's another 6 or 8 opening tomorrow, and that again on the next day, or maybe a little bit more. So more and more of it is coming online. As Minister Compton indicated, there'll be an announcement on school later or tomorrow what the status of that is. But I think it's safe to say that there are some significant challenges that we face as a province, and having gone through Dorian, having gone through COVID and others, we do know that we need to make sure there's childcare spaces available for our essential workers across PEI as more and more of our locations open, and that's what they've been working to do. So, we'll have Minister Jameson will provide a more thorough update on that tomorrow, I think, as she talks about that and other issues facing education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Campbell, CBC.
Hi, I think my first question will be for Kim Griffin with Maritime Electric. So I gather you maybe have completed the province-wide assessment and you have more and more crews coming. Can you just give us an update as to what the timeline is to get everyone reconnected at this point?
Yes, Carrie, I certainly know that question is on every single person's mind, I'm sure. So the assessment is done. We're focusing on restoration mode. We did some more drones this morning as well, but for all essential purposes, the assessment of the damage now is when the crew arrives as well, if they find additional problems on site. So we are going to be providing daily updates. So what I am asking and telling people is that at this point, with pockets of communities, that it's really important that we are planning to be without power, and that I'll be giving those updates every day. It's unfortunate that I can't give an actual restoration time, and I apologize for that. But the sheer magnitude of the trees that are down on our lines, our crews sometimes are having problems just trying to access the different sites as it is. And we've been working hand in hand with the Department of Transportation as well as with Forestry and as well with the armed forces that have arrived. So it's a massive coordinated effort that we absolutely have to focus on the safety of all the personnel and islanders that are here as well. And we're really trying to do that. So I'm not trying to avoid answering your question in any way, shape, or form. I just have to be realistic in the assessment that I provide to you.
Okay, thank you. I just wonder for anyone who wants to field this question, there are major traffic tie-ups. A lot of those are just people trying to get access to fuel. and I gather it all originates on PEI from the Irving Tank Farm on the Charlottetown waterfront, and that wasn't operational until, I guess, 8 o'clock last night. It seems like there wasn't any backup power to work there. I just wonder if that was the case, and if you can describe, and if the province is involved in any efforts to try to expedite shipments, from that depot out to the stations.
Yeah, we've been, that's one of the hundreds of things that we've been working to coordinate. The getting power to the rack, to the tank farm was a priority, obviously. We were able to get that established yesterday, and at 8 o'clock, I believe, that's really when it kicked into gear. As I say, there is lots of fuel. The fuel has been and continues to be distributed across Prince Edward Island. Trucks have been coming in from other jurisdictions with additional loads to help us to get the fuel distributed island-wide. I think there was a panic or fear that because the gas tank was down, that people were led to, or maybe thought that there was no fuel. There is lots of fuel. More and more of it is being distributed as we speak. I think, as I say, we're up to over 35 stations that are open in all counties across PEI. More and more are coming out there. So we don't need to see 4-hour lines for gas. There's lots of gas, there's lots of fuel. I know everybody might be in a little bit of self-preservation mode, and that is understandable, but with a little bit of patience and understanding, I think we could avoid some of those lines. And perhaps if anyone is watching or taking from this today, is that, there is lots of fuel. You don't have to come from Cardigan to Charlottetown to get gas. There's gas in Kings County, and will continue to be, and vice versa. So, yeah, that was the biggest issue that we faced in terms of gas and fuel, was getting the rack or the tank farm alive with electricity.
Okay, we heard Maritime Electric, they're basically pleading with people to stay off the roads. I just wondered if Cabinet has had any sort of discussion around an emergency order or maybe a more forceful deterrent to try to free up some space on the roadway.
Well, the next step, or the only step we would have, would be to declare a state of emergency to keep everybody home. I don't know if that's something we want to do at this point, having seen what we saw when a state of emergency was declared in other places across Canada recently. Look, I think for the most part, people are really trying to get out there to get some fuel, to get some other things. If you can avoid, and we ask, as Kim has said repeatedly, if you could avoid those areas where the crews are trying to get to and to work, we should do that. We obviously know people have to get out to get food, have to get out and move around. I don't know, having gone through 2 years of COVID, if we want to lock everybody in the house again, but we would ask Islanders to use discretion. Only come out if you absolutely need to come out, and to use that discretion and to allow our professionals to do the work that they need to do. But, honestly, Kerry, at this time, I don't think Cabinet would be entertaining a state of emergency order to keep people home at this point, but we would reevaluate that as the days go on.
All right, and if I can just sneak in a quick two-parter here, I wonder if you could tell me what is the budget that's been set for the assistance program meant to help Islanders purchase food and things like that, and what is the budget, and what would be maybe a couple of examples where the disaster assistance relief program might kick in? Yeah, well, perhaps the Minister of Finance could plug his ears if he's watching, but really it's not limited right now. The response will be what it needs to be in terms of getting money out to people as quickly as possible. We'll have a financial responsibility attached to that, obviously, but we can't let money be the deterrent in terms of people getting back to normal a little bit. So, it will be what it will need to be. The disaster fund that we partner with Ottawa really has no cap on it. To be honest, whatever that is, we will determine what it is, and we will execute that. I suppose that the disaster fund would be like we've seen with Dorian, for example. If there was something that you had that was uninsurable and you need to have that replaced, that's what the fund is for.
It's extended to aquaculture businesses and agriculture businesses, for example. I know there are maybe some of our agriculture community have barns or things that blew down that maybe were not insurable. So I suppose it will be on an item-by-item basis. But that fund is designed to be a catch-all for all of those emergency situations and from an uninsurable basis that aren't able to be covered. And it will be there. It was there in Dorian. I forget the number, what it was for Dorian, but whatever it was, we would expect it to be much larger in Fiona.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Morris, CTV.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Carolyn Ryan, CBC.
Hello, Premier. I'd like to know the Canadian Red Cross's donation program, where they're taking donations from Canada. The federal government is matching it. Do you have a sense of how that money will be distributed on the island? Will it go to islanders in the form of gift cards and gas cards, as you mentioned with the Salvation Army helping out, or will it go to the NGOs, the charities, to put out programs of feeding people, that kind of thing?
To try to understand your question, in terms of what the Red Cross will do with the money that Islanders and Canadians will donate and that the federal government will match, I assume it will go out through their avenues to try to get as quickly as possible into the hands of people who need it. We work with dozens and dozens of NGOs across Prince Edward Island, be they the United Way and so many others. So our fund that I talked about today, that will start at $5 million, will go to those groups that can get money quickly into the hands of people. Maybe they need fuel cards, maybe they need furnace oil, for example. Maybe they need food, they need water, some other items and things like that. We want to make sure that there are people that have that access to money, so that's what it will be used for. There are challenges. Sometimes a lot of people either don't have a bank card or the bank card isn't operational, so we don't want that to be an impediment. And like we've done with other crises, Carolyn, we're really just trying to have that fund to say, here's the money, get what you need, and we will get it out to you as quickly as possible. And the best way we've learned to do that is through our wonderful NGOs and nonprofit and community groups who deal with this stuff every day. So that's what that money will go for.
Thanks. And in terms of the damage assessments that were said to be necessary before we really could get going on fixing things, this weekend you said you were going to be starting that as soon as it was safe. What do we know now about where the worst hit areas on the island were?
It's hard to get into a debate about who's hit worse. I mean, if you go to Mount Store, the community has been hit really hard. If you go to Stanley Bridge, the community is hit hard. So it's safe to say that obviously some people along the North Shore didn't only get hit by the Hurricane Fiona, they get hit by the storm surge as well. So, most of our dunes are gone on the North Shore. So it's hard to really target or pinpoint one particular area. I think, as Kim said, Maritime Electric, through their assessment process, is that very few, if any, communities have been spared damage in some way, shape, or form. But from a structure perspective, as I say, we're opening up the roads. We know the damage to a lot of bridges. There's at least 6 schools that were impacted. Our hospitals seem to have stood up pretty well. Our access PEI sites seem to have stood up pretty well from a government perspective. And we're really just, we wanted to use that time before we open up facilities such as school gyms or access PEI. We wanted to make sure that they were structurally sound to do so, and that's what we've done. But in terms of saying who was hit the hardest, I think it's safe to say all of us.
And I'll sneak in one more for Kim Griffin. Maritime Electric's first focus, obviously, was essential services, including the ones that you've mentioned. What is your biggest focus after that? Once we get everything, all the hospitals, grocery stores, gas stations, schools up and running, what will you turn your attention to then?
Well, if I can mention on the essential service pieces, we're not even there yet. When you look as we look across the province, in all the areas of communities, whether it's hospitals, food supply, meaning groceries and or fuel supply and hospitals. We're not done yet. We're, in my opinion, we're just getting there now. A little better than we were yesterday, but certainly in restoration mode for that in that respect. I guess the biggest thing to think about is that what we're trying to do is put on the largest number of customers as we can at a time, including the essential service areas and those pockets. So in answering that, we have transmission. We're trying to make sure that our substations are energized across the province from tip to tip as best we can by the end of the day today. And we're really focusing on getting into those communities. But as we go down community by community, and dozens of poles and wires that are down and the damage, our first priority is working with the province and getting access to all of those sites. So we've had our spotters. Some have driven over trees, they've driven through ditches, you name it. They've done it to try and get the assessment ahead of our crews. And that's what they've been doing. So it is slow going, but I wouldn't even say that we have the essential service component completed.
Sorry, I've got colleagues chatting questions to me. What are the 6 damaged schools? Can we get a list of those so that parents can perhaps start to make a little bit more plans?
I'm trying to name some of them. I know Evangeline School, Queen Charlotte. There was some damage to Cardigan School roof. West Royalty, Surrey, and there's one more maybe. Yeah, there's another one. But I will get those to you, Carolyn. I'll get staff to send those to you when I get offline. Or maybe they're watching
Great.
here and they can do it.
And one more greedy question here. What do we know about garbage pickup, given that so many people are starting to throw away food? Do you have advice? Should they keep it in their freezer and fridge for now and throw it away once the Island Waste Watch people are up and running? What about trees? What about branches? What is going to be done with that debris?
Well, I guess, so what we're trying to do through Island Waste Management is to try to get a couple of sites that we can take and compile branches and then chip them later. But in terms of the food, Tanya, yeah, sure.
Absolutely. So actually our representative from Island Waste Watch is here in our EOC working with our transportation officials. So just before we came in here, they did confirm that they are working on all that plan and will be sharing that communication on how and where to go. But their priority right now is making sure that they don't want to open up and encourage people to start bringing those items in until it is safe to do so, and for their safety report to work safely as well. So that's kind of the message for today. They're working through the plans, and as soon as they have that finalized, they will be communicating that out through our communications and whatever tools that we can. But yeah, absolutely, the recommendation is, if you can, if in your freezer, I would recommend keep it closed. If you don't want to start taking things out, or if you don't have to, leave it intact. And again, we should have more information possibly as early as tomorrow.
I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Lindsay Armstrong, Canadian Press.
Thank you so much. A question for Premier King. Obviously this massive destruction has affected the whole island. I'm wondering if you can talk about the economic hit that the province has taken from this disaster.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you have a shutdown like we've been having here, there's an economic hit to that. To be quite honest, Lindsay, I don't even think we've begun to take a look at what that is. I think the economic hit will just be something we're starting to feel. There will be businesses that aren't able to operate. So how can we work with them to keep their staff paid and to keep those businesses functional until such time as they can work our way through this? So there's an economic hit connected to that. Anytime there's a slowdown or a stoppage in the day-to-day operations of government, that brings with a cost. And then, of course, the cost to fix this all up and to make our way back is going to bring with it a large cost. So I quite honestly don't know what it will be. I mean, we will measure it in the multi-millions, I'm sure. Thankfully, our federal partners are there to help, and we'll do the best we can to get through it. But yeah, anytime your economy stops, it's a big hit, and that's kind of what we're facing here right now.
Thank you so much for that. Evidently, it's very early days. I am wondering if you have a sense of which sectors are most hit. You talked about shutdowns, businesses not being able to operate. I'm wondering about agriculture and things of that nature that would have been hit hard too.
Yeah, well, obviously, anything to do with a storm surge or the tidal situation, we are still in the final stages of LFA 25, their fall lobster season. So I'm unsure of what the damage has been to the traps in the water. I know the wharves were impacted. A lot of boats were out of the water, so there's been a hiccup, to say the least, in that area. A lot of our mussel and our oyster farms have been drastically impacted here. So we'll try to get a full extent of what the measurement of that damage is and what the cost of it is. From an agriculture perspective, soybeans and corn took a beating. I know our apple farms have as well. So, I mean, there's a significant loss there. From a potato perspective, we were really concerned from a potato perspective about rainfall. There's probably was less rainfall across PEI from the hurricane than we initially expected. But I also know that many of my neighbors and friends and colleagues in the potato business have lost storage for their potatoes. So there's a lot of challenges there that we're just learning a little bit more of. I'm grateful that our agriculture sector, our fishery sector, are perhaps amongst the most resilient people that you would ever find on this planet. They'll find a way to work through this, but our potato, industry being impacted with wart and everything that they were last year, this is something that I wish they didn't have to deal with. They'll work their way through it here, and we'll be with them every step of the way. But we'll have a more maybe fulsome update on the impact of agriculture here in the days ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Joey Black here.
Yes, I'm looking at, I'm wondering, maybe how long, or can you estimate how long it's going to take to do a total cleanup?
I lost the last part of your question, Joe. Can you just say it again there? Sorry, which cleanup?
Just wondering how your cleanup is going to, how long it's going to take to do a total cleanup of both possibly Summerside and Charlottetown.
Yeah, well, Summerside and Charlottetown and all of PEI, Joey, it's, there's a mess out here. There's no question. And I think when we came on Sunday morning or Saturday, whenever it was, that we knew this was going to be a long, drawn-out recovery process. I don't know how long it will take to get to some semblance of normal. I don't know if it'll ever be normal driving into Charlottetown or Summerside and not seeing the trees or going out to the North Shore and not seeing the dunes and things like that. So I don't know. I think we're weeks and months into a total cleanup for sure. But our focus right now is to try to get PEI as operational as quickly as we can, and that's what the focus has been.
Okay, and with social development and housing now, what's their plan on helping residents with lost food and the necessities?
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about with that $5 million fund that we start, which is just a start, is to try to get money into the hands of people quickly. We'll do that through our not-for-profits, our NGOs, et cetera, people who deal with islanders tip to tip every day. And then, in terms of, we will need to probably look at social assistance payments in the days ahead through social development and housing to see what we need to do there to expedite some of those funds, et cetera. And, they've been hard at work since Saturday trying to respond as quickly as possible. And our goal would be to try to get money into the hands of people who need it as quickly as possible.
And I don't know if this might be for yourself, Damien, or Kim. When can people expect to get the rest of the power back on?
Yeah, I think that's something that's been asked, and Kim, who in my estimation is one of the best communicators that I've seen, is doing her best to give you the most honest answer she can give you, and that answer is that she doesn't know. She is trying to relay, and I don't need to speak for you, Kim, but she's trying to tell us that there is a plan that Maritime Electric is trying to execute in terms of the essential services to get those rolled out first and to get as many people on as quickly as possible. But I'll let you finish that, Kim. Sure.
Thank you, Premier. Yes, in terms of the timeline for restoration at this point, we don't have that. What I've committed to is a daily update every day, not only in terms of our progress, but what's ahead as more crews come. So at this point right now, we've been able to restore up to 10,000 customers, which is much better than I thought it was going to be yesterday. And so I'm sorry I can't give you a full overview of a date yet, but I can tell you that the crews are working hard across the communities to do their best to try and get the power on as quickly as possible, but it has been the worst storm we've ever had.
And one more, how can people donate to the, how can donations be sent to the Red Cross and what's the
No, I appreciate, Joe. That's a good thing to raise. I know many islanders have wanted to reach out and help. I know the Red Cross has a donation line set up, which is available to islanders and Canadians as well. The federal government will match that. So, but there's other ways to help as well. There are, people are dropping off food and other essentials to neighbors and friends, and that is, I think, the total goodness and beauty of PEI. So everybody there really wants to help, really work together, and they have. So there are opportunities to do so. Certainly, if you have the funds, donate some to the Red Cross, but there's other ways to help, and we're seeing more and more of that. But I appreciate you bringing that up, Joe, and stay safe, my friend.
I will, Premier, and I'll do my best to keep on top of this as well.
Thanks very much. I know you will. I think that brings...
That's all the questions we have for today.
Thank you, Vicki. I think that brings to an end our news conference. I want to thank Darlene, Tanya, Kim. Great as always, and we'll be back tomorrow with a further update, and we'll start to share some of the rest of the government response, education, transportation, etc., with Islanders. So thank you very much, and stay safe.